Good evening and thank you for joining us here on Northwest Newsweek. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in Kenora Friday taking a boat tour of Lake of the Woods. Trudeau was joined by Kenora MP Bob Nault on the trip and afterwards met with locals at a community barbecue. However, the PM was also pressed on his government's support for First Nations in light of Northern Ontario's ongoing suicide crisis. Trudeau says short and long-term support is crucial.
The immediate support we can provide, whether it's extra aid workers and psychologists and health workers, whether it's improving infrastructure and education in the immediate, but there's also the rebuilding of relationships, strengthening the sense of identity that comes from language and culture, celebrating Indigenous strength and futures.
Trudeau moved on to Winnipeg later in the day for the opening of the 2017 Canada Games. A landmark meeting in Ottawa earlier this week between leaders of the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation and the federal and provincial health ministers. They were working on a new accord for the provision of health care in the 49 NAN communities, an agreement that would allow the individual First Nations more autonomy in deciding how they spend health care dollars. NAN says it's the only way to address the ongoing suicide crisis. Joyce Napier has more.
Like many other remote First Nations communities, Pikangikum in Northern Ontario, a reserve of about 2,800 people, is mourning its young dead, children who took their own lives, 4 of them this month alone. Crisis or epidemic, the statistics for the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation, which includes Pikangikum, tells a sadly familiar story. Since the beginning of the year, there were 24 suicides, 8 of those children between the ages of 10 and 15.
We all agree and we all understand the urgency of the situation that we're dealing with here.
The federal and Ontario health ministers and the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation signed a charter that will give First Nations communities in Northern Ontario more of a say, more control over their health care, eventually allowing First Nations to implement their own health plans.
What all people need is hope, belonging, meaning, and purpose. And as First Nations young people see that there is a future for them in which they will have what all people want, which is control over their own lives.
What we really need to do is find out from the communities, what do they actually think will be helpful? What can we add in terms of options for them?
Cindy Blackstock, an advocate for First Nations children, believes this latest initiative is just one more piecemeal solution.
I've seen so many reports done by coroners, done by child advocates, done by First Nations, done by the government itself, that identifies all the causal factors, that identify solutions, only to see them partially implemented or ignored until another death.
The Ontario government is sending 20 mental health workers to Pikangikum, where several hundred people are in need of counseling right now. An emergency measure to prevent more suicide in a community where medical and psychiatric services are less than adequate. Joyce Napier, CTV News, Ottawa.
The inquest jury probing the death of a man on the Cat Lake First Nation has released a long list of recommendations. 34-year-old Romeo Wesley died at the reserve's nursing station in 2010 after he became combative and was forcibly restrained by police. The coroner has released surveillance video of the incident and a warning to viewers some of the images may be disturbing. The 4 video cameras show staff at the nursing station running in a panic as Wesley loses control and assaults another person at the facility. He then begins punching doors before Knapp's police officers arrive. Wesley is pepper sprayed several times, handcuffed, beaten with a baton, and then pinned to the floor for about 10 minutes as he struggles with the officers. At some point, Wesley stopped breathing and was later pronounced dead. The inquest was held earlier this month in Cat Lake. The jury determined the death was accidental, caused by chest compression combined with acute alcohol withdrawal. 53 recommendations were made, including better training for Knapp's officers in use of force and in dealing with people in medical crisis. The jury also wants to see security guards and panic buttons at nursing stations, as well as substance abuse education offered to the youth of Cat Lake. A major funding announcement Wednesday from the federal government and Watay Power. That's the First Nations power company that's looking to bring 22 remote communities onto the provincial energy grid. A combined $4 million is being invested into training those living in the region in anticipation of the line, which is expected to break ground in 2 years. Adam Riley reports.
With the massive endeavor to bring 1,800 kilometers of transmission lines to 22 First Nations now starting in about 2 years, the federal government and Watay Power are wasting no time to begin training workers to build and maintain those lines. The funding announcement was made by Kenora MP Bob Nault in Sioux Lookout on Wednesday.
It gives me great pleasure to announce that Watay Power is receiving over $2 million through SPF here this morning.
That $2 million from the federal government, combined with $2 million from Watay Power, will ensure that the workforce for the project will have the proper training when shovels hit the ground in 2019. Watay's Vice President of Finance, Dwayne Fecto, says he believes it's important to reach out and communicate with each of the communities that will benefit from this project in order for it to be successful.
So what we've done, or what the First Nations have done, is they've created a First Nation company where it actually engages all the 22 First Nations. And around the table, what you're seeing is representatives from each one of those communities, so that centrally we can make sure we get the message out.
Gordon Kakagemic is with Oshki Pimashawin. He says with many modern amenities now in these communities, the power needs have increased steadily over the past 40 years.
But this is definitely a game changer for our communities. Like I said, technology is so pervasive. You have fiber optic networks, cell phone towers, the energy requirements for technology is increasing, so this is perfect timing.
Nault made the announcement on behalf of the Ministry of Employment, Workforce Development and Labour and echoes Kakagemic.
The complications that diesel power gives us relating to just development economically or just socially, building houses, the technology that's needed nowadays, you really do need a consistent power source, and you just can't have thousands of people expected to create an economy on diesel-generated power.
In addition to getting these communities off of diesel fuel, Nault says there's the potential for bringing in an all-weather road that would further reduce the isolation of living in the far north.
So the grid will give us an opportunity to try and develop, in some locations, a place to put an all-weather road.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
Ontario Provincial Police and Sioux Lookout are investigating the theft of 60 fentanyl patches. The patches were taken from a home in the community sometime between July 21st and 26th. Fentanyl's a pain management drug that's not only extremely potent, but also very addictive. OPP are asking anyone with information to contact the detachment in Sioux Lookout. Officers are also warning residents to be careful if they come into contact with the patches. Atikokan is looking to pad its reserve funds, but in doing so, the town may have to cut back on some extensive roadwork projects. Mayor Dennis Brown says it costs the community a lot of money when roadwork projects include dealing with structures and utility lines beneath the streets. It's why he's advocating for a shave and pave policy to repair the roadways. He notes 2 recent projects cost the town about $10 million total. Brown says the policy won't be applied to each street, though, as it will depend upon the road's condition.
Streets that we have been identified that are really in rough condition with the streets, the pipes and that, we'll probably have to do that too. But there are many places where we can just shave, take off the layer and put down a new layer right away. And that'll make the town a little better.
A major traffic disruption on Highway 17 near Wawa earlier this week after a washout last Sunday. A portion of the Trans-Canada Highway had to be closed around noon due to heavy rain, which caused water to pour over the roadway and wash out the shoulder on one side. The closure happened at Alona Bay, which is about 100 kilometers north of Sault Ste. Marie. Repair crews spent 2 days working to reopen both lanes of the highway. Well, when we come back, Minister Michael Gravel is set to return to the public eye after a 5-month leave of absence. The longest-serving MPP in Thunder Bay history is ready to get back to work. Michael Gravel is scheduled to attend a news conference in the city on Monday. It's his first public event since taking a leave of absence in February to seek treatment for depression. Gravel has served at Queen's Park since 1995 and has been in the Liberal cabinet since 2007. The Minister of Northern Development and Mines received strong support from his colleagues, including Premier Kathleen Wynne, when he decided to publicly disclose his personal issues this past winter. Municipal Affairs Minister Bill Morrow took over Gravel's portfolio on an acting basis. On Monday, Gravel will attend an Ontario 150 regreening event outside the Service Ontario office on James Street in Thunder Bay. His leave of absence fueled speculation that the 68-year-old wouldn't seek re-election, but on Friday, his office confirmed that Gravel will indeed put his name on the ballot and try to win a 7th term in 2018. The City of Dryden is now in compliance with the province's municipal accountability rules. City Council has met with the recently appointed Integrity Commissioner. It's a role mandated as part of Bill 68, the Modernizing Ontario's Municipal Legislation Act. Colton Prale has more.
Guy Giorno is a lawyer specializing in conflict of interest laws, and he is officially the City of Dryden's Integrity Commissioner. Giorno met with members of council this past month for the first time since his hiring. His role will be to deal with issues that either members of council could face between each other, residents towards a member or members of council, or non-residents of Dryden towards the city. Giorno says over the past 10 years, there's been a steady evolution of municipal accountability law in the province.
Every so many years, there are new legal developments to strengthen, to enhance it, to add it. So the role of integrity commissioners is about a decade old. Bill 68 is the newest municipal accountability law, which is strengthening the role of integrity commissioners, and it's making sure that every municipality in Ontario has access to one. Right now, it's voluntary. Under Bill 68, they'll all be required to have them.
Giorno says existing legislation from both a provincial and municipal standpoint already covers many grievances that could be filed, and the role of the Integrity Commissioner is designed as a last resort if all other options fail.
It's important to have municipal codes of ethics. It's important to have somebody who is responsible to investigate or look into allegations of a breach, but the ideal is compliance. So I think everybody would agree that the less work there is for integrity commissioners, the better. We're here as a sort of a fail-safe or a last resort, or somebody to look into things when things go wrong.
Dryden Mayor Greg Wilson says while members of council may have differences of opinion, there aren't any major ethical issues facing council, but he appreciates what Giorno can provide to the city.
It's good to know that we've got a resource. I think the lawyer that presented last night, Guy, he was trying to make it clear that I can be there as a resource for you. I'm not there to just cause you grief or trouble. I'm there to help provide information, be a sounding board in terms of legal advice.
Wilson adds he doesn't expect Giorno to be a regular visitor to council meetings, aside from the occasional reports and updates. Colton Prale, TBT News.
The Thunder Bay District Health Unit's DineWise program, a grading system for restaurants in Thunder Bay, may soon expand throughout the region. During last month's meeting of Greenstone Council, Long Lac Ward Councillor James McPherson, who sits on the Thunder Bay District Board of Health, brought the topic forward. The program has been operating for 5 months in Thunder Bay. It awards an A, B, C, or D rating to restaurants following food inspections. Mayor Ronald Beaulieu believes it could be beneficial both to the public and restaurants in the community.
When you are in that restaurant, you can read up on how that description works or how that works, which I think is going to be interesting. And will it be a detriment to small businesses? Maybe it will be a way to encourage small business to want to do better. I mean, you know, sometimes it's good that we do get measured. And for the consumers, well, you're paying the price, so you expect that you try to get the best service.
A Rocky Bay man has been arrested by Nipigon OPP. He's been charged with several counts of break and enter, theft under $5,000, theft over $5,000, and 1 count of possession of property obtained by crime. The charges stem from incidents that occurred between June 26th and July 17th, when he allegedly broke into an Ontario government storage facility in the municipality of Greenstone. Several outboard boat motors, various electronic devices, a 16-foot boat with trailer, and a snowblower were stolen. Police say these items were taken over a period of time. A search warrant was executed on July 23rd at a Rocky Bay residence. The accused remains in custody. Well, they're the future of northwestern Ontario, and on Wednesday, about 50 young First Nations people from 27 communities learned about science at Lakehead University. It's part of a Natural Resources Youth Employment program aimed at giving students a week of hands-on experience. Xiaoli Li was there.
It's the moment of truth as First Nations students wait to see if water filters they just built will work.
I was taken off guard. I didn't think it would come out that clear.
In Lakehead's Water Resource Lab, instructors and undergrads taught First Nation students how to build a basic water filter. Each group of students had a limited amount of money to buy coarse sand, charcoal, gravel, cheesecloth, and other materials with which to make working filters. Adding to the challenge, some groups didn't have clearly written instructions, while others had much less money than their fellow students.
So if you don't have clear instructions or you don't have the budget in your group available to solve your problem, then by what means do you solve that problem? What do you choose to leave out and what do you choose to include? And why do you make those decisions? Learning how to problem solve like that when not everything is available to you is a very real and very important skill to have in life.
Financially, we were definitely on the down low. Some communities don't exactly are not fortunate with as far as resources in water, so we definitely had to improvise with what we had. Each community was focused on their own community, and it's kind of understandable. You got to put your people first. So we were sort of on our own.
The students completed their filters with varying degrees of success, but the Dean of Environmental Studies at LU says just performing the experiments is valuable.
Even if we don't pursue careers in science, being able to hear about science and the interpretation of different problems that we have and some of the scientific solutions that can solve those problems. So it's important for the broader public to have science literacy.
Now, after building their water filters, the students made their way down to the lake for a smudging ceremony and talk about water issues with a First Nations elder. The Youth Employment Program Science Week events continue at LU and Confederation College. Xiaoli Li, TBT News.
Residents on the north side of Dufresne Island near Kenora will soon have easier access to their cottages. The island is split by the Kenora bypass and has cottages on both the north and south sides. Residents on the south have use of the Burlwinder Road for access, but those on the north are forced to park along the highway. Kenora Council has put in motion a plan to create road access to a parking area just off the highway for those living there. Mayor Dave Canfield says the city has been working on creating an access point like this since the bypass opened in 1991.
Access there for a while, and MTO put a stop to that and dug it up and didn't allow the people to go in there. So we've been looking at it for a long time, and I think with the plan that we've got here right now, there is some money in reserves in the Dufresne Island Reserve to use it for that, plus community improvement where the people will pay a certain amount also on top of their taxes in order to get this parking area. I think safety-wise, it's a really good thing to do.
Kenora Council passed the motion last week, but Canfield says it's unlikely that construction will start this year. Well, coming up next, a book chronicling a horrifying piece of Canadian history, the country's first suicide bombing, hits store shelves. A former Kenora resident has released a book detailing an often overlooked event in that community's 112-year history that garnered national attention in 1973. The book is an in-person account of what the author calls Canada's first ever suicide bombing. Adam Riley has that story.
Kenora has an intriguing history. Lake of the Woods served as a smuggler's route for alcohol during the Prohibition era. The Kenora Thistles won the Stanley Cup in 1907, and on May 10, 1973, Kenora was the scene of Canada's first ever suicide bombing. It's the subject of a book that has been recently released by former Kenora resident and journalist Joe Ralco.
I was walking home from high school on the Thursday afternoon before Mother's Day in 1973, turned the corner on Main Street in Kenora, Ontario, and thought I had walked into the scene of a movie set.
But it was no movie set. An unknown man had walked into the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce on Main Street armed with a pistol, a rifle, and 6 sticks of dynamite strapped to his chest. This was a holdup. At the time, Main Street in Kenora was the only access point to the Trans-Canada Highway. This incident effectively shut down the highway. Ralco was among the hundreds who had lined up on the street to watch the drama unfold. He had a unique vantage point on the steps of what is now an electronics store. Ralco says he saw Kenora police officer Don Milliard walk into the bank, walk out with the robber, and then walk back into the bank.
They came out a second time, and there was a bit of a conversation between the two. And I'm only about 50 feet away, so I can see this is going on. I'm not really understanding what's going on. Milliard has a duffel bag full of money, and he goes to throw it in the back of the half-ton truck and starts to run. And then next thing you know, you hear the crack of a rifle. And as I'm falling to the ground, before I hit the ground, I hear the bomb go off.
The gunshot heard by Ralco and those who had gathered to watch the event unfold was that of a police marksman. The bomb was activated as a result of a dead man switch attached to the device. Ralco went on to become a journalist for the Canadian Press, and 33 years later, he decided to write about his experience that day as he recovered from a series of health scares.
Skin cancer had grown inside my throat, and it was very tough to recover. I overcame numerous other health issues, including a second battle with cancer and open heart surgery, to finally finish the book. Last year, submitted it to 15 Canadian book publishers. 2 of them read the manuscript and said, well, thank you very much, but we're not going to publish this as true crime Canadian history because it reads like a movie. Best of luck self-publishing.
And self-publish he did. Ralco's book, The Devil's Gap, The Untold Story of Canada's First Suicide Bomber, is available for purchase through Amazon and select retailers in Kenora. And if you're wondering whatever happened to the remains of the bomber, they've been interred here at the Lake of the Woods Cemetery in an unmarked grave, forever an enigma to the people and the history of the Northwest. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Certainly a fascinating piece of history in northwestern Ontario. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in next time.